Hi, everybody. So I wanted to make a quick new updated crypto video because crypto is still going strong, and as a UFC fan, I still see crypto ads all the time. So um, basically, I read this article about Web3 and then another article about crypto more recently about how it's a bubble, a lot like the dot com bubble. So basically, like crypto, NFTs, all that. It's certainly a bubble now. And my first video was more about the abstract technological side of blockchain. And basically what I will say about it to summarize is that all everything that's blockchain based, so all cryptocurrencies and Web3 and NFTs and other blockchain technology. Blockchain is very inefficient. It just is. It's less efficient than a trusted third party. And so I found this interesting article with a crypto enthusiast or a Web3 enthusiast, a blockchain enthusiast. And the interviewer really hammered him and he had to dodge some questions. But basically, what is Web3? Well, basically, Web3 is the internet based on blockchain instead of a trusted third party hosting the hosting. Okay, so language. Everyone says web apps, web applications. And, it's always sounded confusing to me, but when developers say web app, they're basically just talking about almost anything you can do on the internet. So like Reddit is a web app. The website itself it runs a I don't even I you know, I it's funny because I program in Godot and make video games, but then I don't know the industry lingo for all that stuff. But basically, Web3 is the internet stuff like from everything from PayPal to Reddit running on blockchain instead of being hosted by a company, especially a company. So the idea is to get away from AWS, from Amazon Web Services, away from Google, away from Facebook, away from even Twitter too. Like you could have, it's basically the idea of decentralization. Think crypto, but for the internet. So like cryptocurrency, but for the internet. And central banks. Well, no, that analogy doesn't really work, but. And so I want to move into now with part two. Like, I wanted to summarize why crypto and Web3 aren't going to be the next big thing, like long term. And I love this article that I read, really got the guy to admit that ultimately it's a socio-political movement. And I agreed, and I do accept. I'll link the Wired article that I read, but I'm glad. Like I respect the Web3 enthusiast for acknowledging that it's a socio-political movement, not a socio-economic movement, because blockchain is inefficient. So this is what he says. I'll quote from the article. This is the actual Web3 enthusiast. It was like a crazy. Um, he says. He says. I've never seen a technology that existed to limit one's power. Every technology that I can think of has served to make the user more powerful. They can do more stuff, be richer. They can fulfill the service that they provide faster or better or to more people. He's talking about how normally like every time there's an innovation, it leads to the innovator having more power and control. And that's why the web has gotten more and more centralized over the years, because all the innovations allow for someone to have more, can do more stuff. So then he says, blockchain doesn't do that. It's fundamentally different. And then here, key point, it's effectively a social construct. It's a set of rules. And the only thing that these rules have going for themselves is that there is no one with arbitrary power within the system. So, yeah, that basically, I mean, to the extent Bitcoin can even, or to the extent blockchain can even accomplish that long term, because this is what the guy was forced to admit. Being a social construct, guys, means that blockchain is never going to be cheaper or more efficient than its alternatives. By design, even. So it takes extra. It takes indulgence. It takes a social construct, a political kind of construct. People investing in the blockchain-based system specifically because it's blockchain-based, and saying, okay, I'm not going to use PayPal. I'm not going to use Reddit. I'm going to use these Web3 alternatives, not because they're cheaper, faster, or more convenient, but because they're run on a blockchain and they therefore aren't controlled by a centralized host, and therefore, it's better for society. Well, at that point, it's a little bit like, it's almost like organic food or something, like, oh, people will be willing to pay a little extra in order to use something that is like less harmful to society or busts big tech, like, how much are people willing to pay to defy big tech? That's really what you're betting on with Web3 and stuff like that. Well, really just with Web3. If you're going to be betting on Web3, you're betting on how much are people willing to actually sacrifice, not just in money, but also in user experience. Like a crappier blockchain Reddit. How much does that matter to people? And my answer is not much, because most people don't even really understand what goes on in the cloud anyways. Like, this is it's an esoteric discussion for an esoteric group of people. And the reason why these Web3 companies are getting so much VC money, guys, is because they're trying to be the next Coinbase, okay? Venture capital firms aren't pouring money into Web3 as a charity kind of thing. That's not a social construct. That's an economic construct. So what's their economic motive? Well, they want to capture the market, capture the Web3 kind of a marketplace, and have it become controlled. To me, it's like you have to wonder how will the whole thing, like Bitcoin mining, for example, was supposed to be decentralized, but over time it's not, because of the economic incentives built into it. Eventually, you have giant warehouses in China mining. And how do you prevent that same thing from happening to Web3? They asked him about it in the interview, but the answer was basically that that's when they go into the whole blockchain will be able to do it someday. And no. So the main problems with it, guys, blockchain is inherently less efficient. So that means that when you're betting on Web3 and cryptocurrency, you have to remember, like, making a transaction with a cryptocurrency is always going to cost more than a credit card or cash because it's run on a blockchain, and blockchains are inefficient. So they have all their illusions. If you want to read about proof of stake and proof of work, the differences and all the different innovations and blockchain innovations, you can read about them, but they're getting more efficient than the way that they used to be run, but they're not going to compete with a trusted third party. And you can prove that mathematically. Like, you can just use numbers to represent all the variables we're discussing here and show that no matter what you do, a trusted third party, just having someone hosting the website, it costs extra resources to have that trustless system. And that's why he's forced to admit it's a social thing, not an economic thing. And I'm telling you, when you're investing money, you should focus on the economic viability of something and not rely on social trends. Because most people don't understand what blockchain even is. So they're not going to pay more to use a less convenient, more expensive blockchain application just because it's a blockchain application. They're just not. And that's also the same with NFTs. Like, there's going to become a trusted third-party, centralized alternative to NFTs, and that'll be more efficient and not cost a lot. It'll be cheaper. Some giant company will centralize the whole digital scarcity certification business, maybe. But I guess the point of this video is that Web3 is a lot like crypto, where you're betting on a less efficient, more expensive technology, hoping that people will adapt it for morality reasons, or for social reasons, for like political movement reasons. Which, in my world, man, is just not going to happen. Come on. People are going to use the most effective, most efficient, best app solution for the problem at hand in aggregate, Like, I can't think of any sustained political, like, a sustained political movement where people, like, deliberately... It's the equivalent of saying that people, like, are going to be willing to walk instead of drive for climate change, or, like, to beat the railroad monopolies, they would have kept using the, pony mail, carriage mail, just to spite the trains, even though it's less efficient. It's like, man, I don't think so. So, blockchain's innovative, it's new, but as this guy said, it's not innovative because it's more efficient. It's innovative because it's decentralized and doesn't require a trusted third party for a transaction or for an interaction, really. And I think that what happens with people, guys, is that you see these really, really, like, technologically advanced people super excited about something and think that it must be on the cutting edge. It must be the thing that's about to take over society. But to me, like, Web3, the concept of it is incredibly exciting. Like, the idea of being able to have an internet that doesn't require a centralized, like, a host, a provider, basically, or basically a server, an internet that doesn't require a hosted server handling all of the traffic, or doesn't have one, or doesn't like kind of almost like Tor in a way, I guess. I mean, it's pretty cool, the idea, but it's not going to be something. It's like Tor, you know. It's like Tor. How many people use Tor just because they believe in the idea of the the Fourth Amendment or whatever, or digital privacy? They use the dark web just because they believe in the concept of digital privacy and spiting Google. Man, dude, let me tell you, people, like, there already are plenty of open source blockchain based, like, Web3 style services. There's blockchain email, I believe. There is like a lot of blockchain services, and the reason why they're not used is because they're way less convenient, and it's better to just have your Gmail up. So the idea that there's going to be this mass social movement against Gmail just to get people, and we'll all have less comfortable digital lives just to support this decentralized technology, kind of like organic food. It's always going to be a niche, and it'll never take over it'll never be the bigger elephant in the room. Like, man, I'm not talking straight right now, but basically what I mean is, because it's less efficient, it's kind of like organic food, where it's always going to be this more expensive niche alternative, but it won't upend the market. It won't get rid of the dollar, right? Like, crypto isn't going to displace the dollar, and Web3 isn't going to displace, I don't think, Web 2.0. It's going to be, off to the side, because it's less efficient. It's a social thing and not an economic thing. All right, cool. So I hope I got a little bit less into the, like, abstract text side a little bit. But this stuff is very exciting for people who are into technology. So you hear them talking about it, and then people are like, "Oh, here's a PhD talking about this new tech and how it's awesome." So it must be the thing that's about to take over the world. And it's like, or it's a niche alternative that's always going to stay a niche alternative, you know? And there's a lot of interests that want to become the next Coinbase for Web3. Like, there's already giant money interests in it. Like I said, the venture capital companies don't do it for charity. So there's already massive corporate interest in Web3 before it's even really gotten going. So it's like the whole idea, it's just another one of those pie in the sky, dreams. And that's not what you want to bet your money on. You want to bet your money on fundamentals. You want to bet your money on efficiency. If you're looking for a technology that's going to take over in the future, it needs to be more efficient. So yeah, cool. As far as, like, you're really, in the end, because of that, sorry, some tech issues here, betting on a social trend. And, you're betting on how much this socio-political movement is going to hold up and how long it's going to last. And man, I don't know. If I had to guess, I would say in 30 years, the web is still centralized. And Web3 is this thing that's kind of like Tor that some people use, but you have to be a little bit more tech savvy. And it's just this thing that exists, but it doesn't upend. It doesn't upset what the norm is. It doesn't affect what the mass conformity is. So that's my prediction. My Nostradamus attempt. So cool. Thanks.